So why? So live foods, from an ecological point of view, are an unbroken wholeness. Just think about it that way, an unbroken wholeness. So there's a certain power in all that. Now you can see here on the slide, there's that pale green there, and there's a vibrant looking bluish with lots of light color. This is a cabbage leaf. No. One is cooked, the one on top is cooked, and the other one below is raw. There's an obvious difference in the energy field. Now, Dr. Fritz Popp talked about it slightly differently. He's from Germany. I believe he's still alive. And he talks about bio-photons. So if you see those little sparks of light kind of coming out of that cabbage leaf, we're looking at energy. And what he found is people who were eating junk food had about 1,000 biophotons per square centimeter. People who were eating basically cooked but organic food had about 23,000. A newborn baby had 33,000 biophotons. And a person who was a live fooder had 83,000 biophotons. And if they added a few Chinese longevity herbs, which won't be really our topic today, but it's really makes a difference, it was up to about 118,000. So 83,000 versus 1,000. 83 times more energy and life force in the live food. Well documented in a unique way. And I used the concept I first introduced in 1986, which is subtle organizing energy field. These are the fields that surround, like our organs, for example, or our cells, or the DNA, all of the above. And the more organizing energy, subtle organizing energy field, the more defined the DNA is, or the cell is, the better it functions. That's the key concept here. So the live food improves DNA, cell, organ, and overall body function because the whole system is more organized. The field of organization is more organized. So think about that for a moment. That's why you get better thinking. That's why you get more strength, because everything is working better and it's more organized, more focused. Next slide, please. Now, Dr. Stephen Spindler made an interesting discovery. He found that when he reduced the calories by 40%, there was a 400% increase in the DNA for longevity and well-being and anti-diabetes. In other words, it upgraded the DNA. So what you're hearing is two statements. Less food, you upgrade the function of the DNA, and by what you eat, you can affect the function of the DNA. And both of them are important when we think about live food. We're actually increasing our DNA function, and we're literally upgrading what we call the epigenetic organization. So when we do live food, we actually can eat half as much. I actually, at this point, just have one meal a day, which is a big salad, usually around 2 o'clock, something like that. And just a little bit of cacao in the morning with, a drink. That's it. So you don't need much. And my weight stays stable. Strength continues to grow, but weight stays stable. So that's what we can do. Now, part of it is the membrane potential. Like each cell is a battery. Just think about that. So when you're eating live food, you're taking the highest concentration of electrons into your body. That concentration of electrons comes from the food without going into the biochemistry, into the cells and improves each cell as a battery. And with live food, we have the best battery charge. Literally, I mean, that's been tested, okay? It's not like a metaphor. It's the best battery charge. And Dr. Eppinger, Hans Eppinger, did a lot of work in testing the cell as a battery. And along with that, as I mentioned, genetic upgrade was researched by Dr. Werner Kollath from Sweden. And he again found we get optimum, we begin to optimize the gene expression on a live food diet, which is exactly what I've been saying here. So we are literally upgrading the function of our DNA, the epigenetic power of our DNA. So we're getting a higher function on multiple levels. Next slide, please. And one thing gets a little overemphasized in enzyme preservation. The research was done in the 1930s, something like that. And it really wasn't the highest quality of research. And I can't tell you that there's that much difference. I had a master's student actually check this out. And what really, the only difference was in terms of enzyme, whether it's cooked or not, was with junk food. They had the lowest amount of enzymes. So I bring it up only to say, I don't think it's one of the better ways to say one of the advantages of live food is enzyme preservation. It doesn't seem to be the case. Now, raw food is alkalizing and mineralizing, and most people are acidic, so fine. This starts to make that correction naturally. Zeta potential has to do with the surface tension of the water in our cells. The higher the zeta potential, the healthier our cells are. Now, I mentioned before with live food that constipation is greatly reduced. So it decreases the bowel toxicity because it takes 24 to 36 hours to get through the colon versus 40 to 100 hours with cooked food. Does make a difference, and that's important. Now, when we cook carbohydrates and make acrylide, and that has been shown to be potentially cancer producing. So just make a note about questions. We're going to leave time at the end, at least a half hour for questions. So I'm going to answer your questions then. That way I can get the flow and kind of go through, because I found that a more effective way to do that. Now, next slide, please. Okay. Next slide after this. Okay. So this is what a lemon looks like. That's raw. You see the energy coming out. We are eating that energy. That's what's so beautiful. Next slide, please. This is a sprout. Okay, it's beautiful. Next slide, please. And this is a corn sprout. You see the energy that's there. Next slide. This is Carillion photography. This is cacao. Now, I could speak for the next 2 hours on cacao, but what I do want to say is cacao improves heart function, brain function, general energy. It decreases the rate of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, by 14%. So I really like cacao a lot as something that's good. Now, not with a lot of sugar, obviously, for diabetes. Next slide, please. And this is a picture, and it's kind of interesting that you see it's the same person. One, it almost nothing there. They're eating junk food, and this one, they're eating basically organic food. Next slide, please. And this is, we are beings of light, and this white light here is the pineal gland shining. Next slide. And that's pituitary gland, shining. Next slide. And next slide after this is epinephrine. So it's wound like Kundalini 3.5 times, a lot of energy. Next slide. And this is testosterone. Next slide. Estrogen, a little bit rounder. So this is crystallography. So we're seeing things that have frequencies and vibrations.